Welcome to Neo and Jiho Part 16. Remember to subscribe and tap the notification bell not to miss any part. The soft thrum of Tumi's laughter still echoed faintly down the corridor as the front door clicked shut. Jiho and Neo were left alone in the quiet apartment, sunlight drifting lazily through the windows, wrapping the room in a golden warmth. Neo turned from the door, hands on her hips.
She said she won't be long, probably 20 minutes.
Jiho nodded, stepping out of his shoes with a soft sigh.
This place feels like it's lived in. You can feel the stories in the walls.
Neo smiled fondly.
It's simple, but it's home. Or, it was. Tumi's now the boss lady here.
Jiho chuckled, glancing around. The soft hum of a ceiling fan, the earthy smell of the woven rug by the couch, and the gentle swaying of the curtain all felt like comfort he hadn't realized he missed.
It's so warm today, Jiho said, unbuttoning the top of his shirt.
Neo raised an eyebrow.
Too warm for you, soul man?
I'm melting, Jiho teased. She grinned, then walked to the bedroom.
Come,
she said over her shoulder.
I have something better than AC.
He followed, curious. Inside Neo's room, the light was softer, filtered through a floral curtain. She opened a wooden drawer and pulled out a wrapper.
We use this when it's hot. Traditional, light, airy, perfect for your delicate skin.
Jiho laughed.
Delicate?
Very.
He slipped off his shirt, revealing his lean chest.
Neo paused slightly, then cleared her throat and approached with the wrapper.
Hold your arms up.
She carefully wrapped the cloth around his torso and tied it just beneath his arms. It fit snugly, almost like a tube dress. Their fingers brushed. Jiho looked down at her face, close to his now.
You're getting hotter, he murmured.
Neo raised her eyebrows, half laughing.
Because of the sun?
Jiho leaned slightly closer.
Because of you.
Neo burst into a nervous giggle, playfully swatting his shoulder.
Jiho!
What? He lifted his hands in mock innocence. Just appreciating local culture. She stood back, arms crossed, but her smile was wide.
Now you look like my auntie from Molopolole,
Jiho gasped.
That's disrespectful to your auntie.
Neo doubled over in laughter.
You're the one wearing her wrapper.
They collapsed onto the bed in a heap of laughter, Jiho's arms still half pinned by the snug cloth. Neo tried to untangle him, but he squirmed, and they ended up in a tangle of limbs and fabric. Tickles followed. Jiho reached for her waist. She squealed and pushed back.
Stop, I'm going to cry.
That's the goal, he grinned. They paused, breathless, bodies close. Jiho's hand rested lightly on her hip, his cheek nearly brushing hers. There was a beat of stillness, charged, tender. Neo's voice dropped.
Last night was something, wasn't it?
Jiho nodded slowly.
I keep replaying it, like it was a dream.
Neo's eyes softened.
A really good dream.
Jiho brushed a strand of hair from her face.
You're beautiful, Neo. I didn't expect this. Any of this. But I'm glad I found you.
Their lips almost met, but Neo laughed suddenly, pulling away.
Hey, Tumi said we must behave. This is her house now.
Jiho threw his head back, groaning.
I'm trying to be good, but it's hard when you're around.
Neo stood, straightening her wrapper.
Come, before we get into more trouble. We have to cook.
Jiho followed, still adjusting the cloth.
Okay, but I demand lessons. If I'm going to survive here, I must learn how to make Botswana food.
They headed to the kitchen. Neo opened the fridge and pulled out a slab of beef.
We'll make seswa. It's shredded beef, slow cooked, very local.
Jiho rolled up his imaginary sleeves.
I'm ready.
Neo handed him a knife and pointed to the chopping board.
Start slicing. Thin strips.
Jiho grinned.
Bossy, I like it.
As he began slicing the meat with slow precision, Neo glanced at her phone. A notification blinked. 14 missed messages. She frowned.
Weird.
Opening one from her friend Lebo, it read, "Is it true? Are you really with him? Girl, please say yes."
Another read, "You're trending on TikTok. The video of Jiho with the kids. Girl, the views."
More messages flowed in.
University friends, co-workers from the local company where Neo had worked before the ordeal, neighbors. All of them had seen the pictures. One message simply read, "That's our Neo, you made it, girl." Neo blinked. "Oh, wow. What is it?" Jiho asked. Neo shook her head, amazed. "I think—" Back outside, a growing group of neighbors had gathered across the street. Women holding toddlers on their hips whispered excitedly. Teenagers held up their phones, pretending to casually take photos. A man in a soccer jersey pointed toward the apartment, speaking rapidly in Setswana. The SUVs parked outside had become the center of attention. A reporter and cameraman had arrived. They weren't invasive, just standing a short distance away, waiting for any glimpse. Rumors swirled in the air. Who is the man? What does he do? Is he marrying one of the girls? Inside, Jiho sliced with focused care, unaware. Neo turned back to him. "Hey, Jiho? Do you want Tumi to work with you for real?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "I think she's strong, sharp. I can help her start something meaningful." Neo smiled, then moved to Tumi's room, retrieving a folder from the drawer. "Here's her passport. You can scan it." Jiho opened his phone and dialed. "Insu," he said when the line picked up. "I'm sending you something. I want you to draw up a preliminary contract for a potential hire in Botswana. It's personal." Neo listened quietly as he spoke to his business partner, her heart swelling. When he ended the call, he looked up. "Done. She'll have a legal offer within a day. Once it's approved, we'll move fast." Neo leaned in and kissed his cheek. "Thank you." Jiho smiled. "I told you I'm not going anywhere." As they stood side by side, the kitchen filled with the rich smell of beef and onions beginning to simmer. The laughter had softened, replaced by something deeper, a quiet intimacy, the kind that lives in shared space and simple acts. And outside, though they didn't know it yet, their world was changing. Tumi's car turned into the narrow road and immediately slowed. She could hardly believe her eyes. People everywhere. Women in gowns, children in school uniform, aunties leaning on walkers. Even one man in a church deacon's suit stood watching the building. Phones were up, a few camera flashes popped. Her car had barely stopped before someone knocked gently on the window. "Excuse me, is Jiho still here?" Tumi blinked. "Yes, but please, respect our space. This is home." She exited with her bags. The driver helped as the crowd parted, murmuring with excitement. "That's her! That's the sister!" Someone shouted. "We're proud of you!" "Thank you," Tumi said, breathless. "Truly." She reached the staircase and climbed quickly, feeling both amused and protective. Inside, the house smelled like fried onions and early simmering. She pushed open the door and paused. Neo was wearing a colorful wrap dress, hair up, cheeks flushed. Jiho was wearing a loose wrapper around his waist, no shirt, a dish towel over his shoulder, a knife in hand. They froze like children caught playing in the mud. Jiho said. Tumi burst out laughing. "I was gone for 30 minutes. What did I miss?" Neo blushed. "We were cooking." "Sure, and what else?" she teased. Neo tossed a carrot at her. "Help me before I change my mind." Tumi dropped the bags and wiped tears from her eyes. "You two are trouble." After the laughter, the cooking resumed. Neo handed Jiho a spoonful of sauce to taste. He nodded with approval. "This is what I want to remember," he said. "The smell of this sauce, your laughter, your old floor creaking beneath my feet." Neo touched his cheek. "Then remember it well." The aroma filled the apartment long before the final dish hit the table. Rich, slow-cooked beef, seswa, lay tender and shredded in a large ceramic bowl, steam curling above it. Neo had paired it with soft pap and a tomato-onion relish that made Jiho's stomach growl the moment he saw it. The table was modest, just a round wooden one with slightly mismatched chairs, but the energy in the room was vibrant. Tumi clapped her hands with satisfaction, placing the final spoon on the table. "Everything's here. Neo, call your boyfriend." Neo leaned into the bedroom and called, "Jiho, food's ready. Come see how we eat in Botswana." He appeared within seconds, freshly washed, barefoot and curious. "It smells incredible," Neo grinned, holding up a clean bowl of water. But wait, before you eat, wash your hands. We eat with our hands today. Jiho looked amused. No spoon. No spoon, Tumi said, laughing. Your fingers are the spoon today. Jiho rolled up his sleeves, then dramatically dipped his hands into the water. This is a sacred ritual, isn't it? Neo raised an eyebrow. Very sacred. And if you mess it up, well, Tumi and I will make a TikTok video about it. Everyone laughed. They sat down around the table. Jiho followed Neo's lead as she scooped a bit of the pap, pressed it gently into her palm, and used it to scoop up the beef and relish. Jiho watched intently, then tried. He pinched a small amount of pap, tried to form it in his fingers like clay, and attempted to scoop up the seswa. Most of it slid off before he could get it near his mouth. Tumi couldn't contain her laughter. Hey, Jiho, you're swiping like a credit card! Neo chuckled, covering her mouth. You're swiping the seswa off the plate like you're checking your balance. Jiho laughed, finally getting a small bite to his mouth. This is harder than chopsticks. But doesn't it taste better? Neo asked, nudging him. Jiho paused. He closed his eyes. Actually, yes. It's more real, warm. The texture. I feel like I'm part of the food. Exactly, Tumi said. That's the point. You're not separate from the food. You're one with it. Jiho continued eating, now more confidently, though occasionally a piece of meat would escape and drop back into the bowl, making Neo and Tumi burst into more giggles. Soon, they were all eating and talking at the same time. Jiho asked about each ingredient, about how long the seswa was cooked and how to make the relish. Tumi told a story about how Neo once burned the PAP so badly it looked like a tire. Neo defended herself. That was one time, and it was because the gas ran out. Jiho looked between the two sisters, smiling deeply. The food, the laughter, the warmth. It was the most at home he'd felt in weeks. After seconds and even thirds, Jiho leaned back in his chair, belly full, hands wiped clean. That was the best meal I've had in a long time. Neo looked proud. Thank you for eating with your hands. I'll do it again any time, Jiho said, even in a boardroom if I have to. By the time they finished and cleared the table, the sun had fully dipped. The apartment now glowed with soft yellow light, and a warm breeze drifted through the curtains. They sat for a few minutes in the living room, sipping rooibos tea and listening to the distant sounds of neighbors chatting and radios playing old love songs. When Jiho stood up to stretch, he glanced at the clock and said, We should head back. It's getting late. Neo nodded and looked out the window. I hope the paparazzi have disappeared. But they hadn't. When the trio stepped out of the apartment, the narrow street was calmer, but a few people still lingered. Most of the curious neighbors had gone home, but two local journalists stood beside a car, whispering and holding cameras. The sleek black SUV awaited them, headlights gently cutting through the dusk. As Jiho and Neo stepped out, the cameras clicked again. Flashes danced across their faces like sudden lightning. Neo winced at the sudden burst of light. Jiho instinctively shielded her. Tumi leaned in and whispered, I'll stay here. I want to clean up and... I think I left my scarf inside. Neo looked at her gratefully. Thank you. As Jiho and Neo climbed into the SUV, the driver closed the door, and the vehicle eased forward into the night. From the rearview mirror, Jiho saw another flash of light as someone took one last photo of them pulling away. Neo leaned her head against the window. This is crazy. All of this, it's surreal. Jiho smiled gently. Just wait until we get back. She turned to him. Why? What did you do? He said nothing. Just reached out, gently took her hand, and kissed the back of it. When they pulled up to the hotel, the driver stepped out and opened the door. Neo stepped into the cool, perfumed air of the hotel lobby, but stopped when she saw a trail of white rose petals stretching from the entrance to the elevator. At first, she thought maybe someone else was getting engaged, but then she turned to Jiho. You? Come, he said. Upstairs, the elevator opened to a hallway lit with small, flickering lights. A staff member stood at the suite's double doors and opened them with a respectful bow. On the floor, in perfect cursive script written with red petals, were the words, "I love you, Neomolefe."